welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I'm Robert Haynes, your host and your guide into the world of TSM's LCS team. And guess what? It's party time. Let's go. Sorry, I'm recording in the morning, so I can't be as loud as I would like to be. But let's go, guys. Come on. 2-0 weekend. First one of 2022. And, this was probably like the least likely one. We didn't need a miracle. We weren't, hoping and praying. They just played well against C9. And yeah, I'm impressed. I'm very, considering everything that has happened for this team in the last, 2 months, 6 months, really, if you want to go back far enough. This is a much bigger deal than I think most people are going to give the team credit for. And there's a reason behind that. The details of why Peter Zhang was released have come out. And, I thought a lot about this. And I'm going to wait to talk about that until Thursday's episode. Because I want this to be a positive and upbeat and happy episode. Because it may be the only one that we get for the entirety of Spring Split. So, yeah, I'm not going to, pretend that, there's not other things going on. But, we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate. It's a 2-0 weekend. The way this team has been playing, I didn't think we were going to see that at all. I figured, well, we're just going to have to wait till summer. I'm, going to have to wait till June for us to actually have an episode where, yeah, things are good. And so I'm very excited about this. I'm kind of through the, over the moon because, there was one game where they just played really good League of Legends. There was a second game where they actually came back and played really good comeback League of Legends. And they're probably not the games you would have thought when looking at the schedule and looking at everything else. So let's get started with Saturday's game. TSM versus Cloud9. And, going through and watching this draft, I was a little confused, a little concerned. But, Cloud9, I think, doing a smart thing, taking Takeover off of his two, pretty strong champions in terms of LeBlanc and the Silas. I thought, okay, we're going to have to see Takeover on something that he's a little less comfortable on. I appreciated the TK ban as well. Still don't understand the Karma one. I don't think she's that good right now, but whatever. And then the Hecarim ban I was totally fine with. And, in the end, we go ultra comfortable because we picked, the Ryze and the Zeri and the Lee Sin in our first rounds. And then, second rounds, we pick out the Rumble and the Set. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're talking on the bench, or on the cast, where's TSM's Engage going to come from, right? And I'm looking at, Cloud9, and I'm like, well, as soon as Blabber just runs at us, Set just presses R and dive bombs him back into the team, and Spica goes in. Zeri's very mobile, obviously. Takeover can ult in if he needs to. He also ran Phase Rush, so he was very easily able to get into fights if he needs to as well. Get in and out. And then for Huni, right, it's just pressing R in a spot that makes them come towards you. So the rest of their team, I didn't really worry about. And I mean, it's the same thing with Summit, right? If Summit goes Meganar and he starts running at you, Set presses R and throws him back into his team with all the extra health that he has. And I don't know, this was just, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is good, like they're picking comfort. I really, really like the Set pick into the Nautilus, honestly, like a lot. And as this game is going on, and we don't get first Drake, and I start sweating there. To be honest with you, I'm like, oh god, okay, like, whew, okay, that's not great. And then we do get first Herald into first tower. We end up getting the second Drake, which was huge in my mind, and it's because Tactical was. And I memed on him. I'm gonna let you guys know. I said Tactical Zeri rip in the Talking TSM Discord. Which normally I don't feel so bad about, to be honest, because his first two games on Zeri were pretty terrible, to be honest with you. But something clicked between him and Shen Yi, and he looked very comfortable on this pick. As kind of everything went on, he was sitting down there. He was farming pretty well. He was able to dodge a lot of the Kaisa rocket W's. And he eventually takes over this game for sure. But realistically, the early portion of the game was Spica and Huni. They finally started playing through Huni a little bit more and trying to get Summit down, and they kind of just nullified Summit with a pick that that they could punish him on, in terms of, again, the Set being available, Rise being able to stop him, the Lee Sin being able to kick him out. Like, we have really, really good disengage into a comp that when you have the Gnar, when you have the Nautilus, like, it's about getting in and getting the fight started, and even the Volibear, right? Kaisa as well. I mean, I just think, like, this was a really creative and clever composition that still picked for everybody's, like, comfort zone. Like, Rise for Takeover still looked comfortable. Wasn't his best pick, but it was a comfort pick. Shen Yi was obviously very comfortable on the Set. Looked like it and played it very well. Spica, Lee Sin, super comfortable, obviously. Huni, Rumble's, like, his number one champion. And, while Tactical was playing the Zeri, which is not exactly his comfort zone, he still did a really good job. And as this game's kind of progressing on, Spica's making plays. We start stacking Drakes, and our macro was just on point, to say the least. And it felt like, to me, that we're doing really well here. Okay. We were able to, I think, stave off the early game of C9 and really put them in a position to where they had to come to us, which is what happens when you have control over Drakes. I would like to remind you of that. And, at the pivotal fight where, we're able to take Dragon and head straight over to Baron, that is a huge, huge win for us, honestly. And, once we got Soul and just kind of curtailed that into the second Baron, with the way that Tactical was able to get in and out of fights, with him actually using his ult correctly, him being able to jump in and out of fights correctly, the way he was using his W to check, I think was really smart, especially when he was left alone. The fight around Red Buff where Shen Yi was able to, turn things around with his ult. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I actually don't even think Huni played all that well near the end of the game. I think his early game and mid game were a lot better, which is surprising considering, like, Rumble ult can be so freaking useful. But this game was just clean. I mean, they took the macro game really well. They played really well. I mean, Takeover had some incredible ults to put the team in position to not only get kills, especially around that third Drake for us, but to, I think, not put us in a position to where we were gonna get killed, right? Like I kept thinking to myself, I was watching some of his ults, and I'm like, especially the pivotal ult that helped us to secure, I believe it was the Dragon at around 24 minutes, where he goes down into the tri-bush, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, that seems a little short. I know the range is longer. I've been playing some Rise myself. And then I went back and I rewatched it, and I'm like, oh, wait. That was such a smart play. He doesn't put them in any danger whatsoever of getting attacked. Like, they're in a perfect position to be able to, to win this fight because of it, right? Like, he didn't need to overextend and try to, cut them off. And, when you have champions like, Ali Sin, Azeri, even a set to a certain degree with his Q getting the movement speed towards enemies, like, the Rise ult worked, and he did a great job at clearing and just kind of doing what he needed to do to help the team. I was impressed with Takeover in this game. I really was. I was like, okay, like, how's this going to work out into, a Veigar Fudge, Fudge played okay. He obviously wasn't great. Didn't feel like he ever was able to really be a part of fights, even with Predator. But, I think what Takeover is doing is really nullifying mid laners. He's pushing when he needs to. He is, sitting back and putting the rest of his team in a good position, right? He's doing a good job not getting caught in the side lanes. I think Kaidua, while more mechanically gifted still than Takeover, if you've noticed in most of Takeover's games, he's not getting caught in side lanes. I think that's been absolutely unbelievably massive for him. When I look at, what's going on in these games right now, they don't need Takeover to literally take over the game, right? They don't need him to be a guy who is going to make all these like crazy good plays and put the team ahead through his laning. Like, they've got Spica, Tactical, and Huni for that. It may just be like, and the one thing I will criticize is I still think we should have seen Kaidua, by the way. And I'll explain that here in a second. But for Takeover's part, second highest CS in the team, second highest CS in the game. He was clearing waves. He was constantly putting the side lane pressure on them. He used his ults correctly to get his team in and out of fights. And, he died one time. Like, yeah, he only got 1 kill and 8 assists. He wasn't a major part of the game, right? Everybody else had, double-digit participation. I'd like to see more of that from him. But when he needed to be available in fights and when he needed to make plays, he did. That's all you can ask for from a young mid laner right now, right? Like, the more comfortable he gets, theoretically, the better he will get and the more comfortable he'll be at taking certain, risks, right? Right now, with a team of the 3 veterans plus Shenyi, right, like, he doesn't have to do that. He just has to be stable. And, with Kaiduo, I think that was Kaiduo's problem, is it was like, he didn't like just being stable, right? Like, so many of those smite support tops, right? He was just clearing waves, and then every time he was like able to be in a fight, he was there and constantly trying to push for extra advantages where he didn't really need to necessarily, right? Like, all he needed to do was stay alive and make plays to help the rest of his team, pump out damage without necessarily being the one to get all the kills or the glory. Whereas in his first 2 games, right, when he was playing the Victor, they were feeding him the kills, and he didn't translate it as well, I don't think. I think the rest of the team just said, screw that, we're gonna be the ones who take over these games instead. And I'm sure like Takeover doesn't really have like a massive voice in terms of the calls in this game. I could be wrong on that. I'm willing to, admit if I can see something differently in comms, but it doesn't seem like they're playing around Takeover. It's Takeover playing around them. And that's where the conversation will come in here in a couple weeks, 2 weeks to be exact, as to whether or not he's going to be the guy going forward. If he plays well next week, there's a world where I say give him a chance, right? Like, I mean, if the rest of this team just feels more comfortable with a guy who can just be there and be safe and be smart and be able to help them, like be able to facilitate wins for the team and allow for, again, Spica, Huni, and Tactical to carry, then great. You don't need anybody better in the mid lane. Like, a supportive mid laner is not the worst thing ever. We've seen what Doinby can do, right? Like, while he can carry games, and I'm not obviously comparing Takeover to Doinby in actual skill. I'm just saying the style of play. And that's where the Niski question's going to come in for a lot of people, even Jensen to a certain degree. Stability, is apparently crucial for this team's success. They don't need a playmaker. They just need a non-tilter. They need a just truly just like a supportive mid. Shenyi makes plays. Tactical lives on that knife's edge, makes plays, right? But he's able to stay on that edge more easily if the rest of his team is surrounding him. Spica can make plays. Huni can make plays, as we will specifically see in this second game when we go to that here in a minute. I don't know if, maybe the weight of playoffs and trying to find success and, like, I think, as much criticism as I've given Chawi in the last couple of weeks, I think his decision to give the team a week off, give them, like, a mental break, I think that paid off. I really do. I mean, you got to think about it this way, like, these guys they're grinding, right? And they have not had a break since, basically Shinyi and Kaido came over, right? And the reality is that they are, they've probably been feeling the pressure since day one. And now that the pressure's not there, they're able to go out and play the way that we all thought they could initially. And watching this first game, I think everybody's sitting here like, okay, this is what we wanted to see, right? This is where we are able to really become the team that we wanted to become. And so I loved this game. I absolutely loved it. I think it was really well played from the whole team. I think picking Comfort was a great decision by Chawi in case. And I think, like, this kind of a team works for them. When you have a super aggressive team, picking the amount of disengage that they have, right, and picking that Set, oh my goodness. Set's not going to become my new Galio, but I do love Set as a champion, and I think with the way that this team plays, I wouldn't mind seeing more of it. I think it gives Shenyi the playmaking ability. I think he's also able to tank up a lot. I think especially into, melee supports, I think that it can be extremely useful. So, and they were a low auto attack range, team anyways, with the Vagar and the Kaisa. And I will say this too, I don't think Fudge really used his baby cage all that effectively. I think there were a lot of times where he probably could have used it better and he didn't. So, we walk out of Saturday's game with a humongous dub for TSM, and just really was truly a great game for them. Now, the second game, The second game was, well, interesting. So, we ban the horse. We get rid of the volley bear, the TK. No real problems there. They got rid of Zeri and Lee Sin. Hey, they watched our last game. Congratulations. They get rid of the Tryndamere, which was interesting. I guess they were afraid of Huni picking a carry. Didn't matter. But again, I liked I liked the draft in terms of Rise is such a safe first pick. I don't love that he's our first pick. I think there are better, more powerful picks, but I think it allows everybody else to do, which I know I was critical of. Sorry, it allows everybody else to see what they've got so that they can counterpick. I was critical of it with Kaido. I was, because I thought Kaido needed to have counterpick in order to find success. I still feel that way, but I think for Takeover, you pick him comfort, you pick him something that is super hard to counter, and something that's going to scale no matter what. Rise is that. Rise is 100% that. I wouldn't even be surprised if Rise gets banned, potentially, because of the fact that it is such a comfort pick, clearly, for Takeover. But, I'm looking at this team, and I'm like, okay, I can see what's going on. First round, we go Rise into the Jinx, which Tactical has played Jinx really well this season. And the J4. I didn't love J4. I still don't love J4. It made plays in this game, but I didn't love it. And they go with a wacky comp. Cassiopeia, Ashe, with the Graves Viego, which is pretty common, and the Nautilus, which is also pretty common. And we rounded everything out with an Irelia, which they, the desk rightfully was like, hey, that's not going to be great into Power of Evil Cassiopeia, right? He's not going to be able to dash when the miasma, the W from, I think it's the W. Pretty sure it's the W from Cassiopeia is out there. And I'm like, yeah, that's a really good point. But there's a world where it doesn't really matter too much, right? If you can play around it, because it is a relatively long cooldown. And similar to the baby cage, right? You got to use it right. Otherwise, it's, it's completely ineffective and it doesn't matter. And at the start of this game, TSM Spica dies to a Nautilus hook flashing in a straight line, which I don't think he could have really flashed any other way, because if he flashes away from the tower, I think he still dies. So I don't really know what he could have done there that could have been different. I think maybe if he goes up instead of towards the tower, maybe. Or if he goes over, honestly, even the blue buff wall, potentially. Actually, yeah, if he goes over blue buff wall, he definitely lives. I think he panicked and went the wrong way. So, he does that, and then, and then Power of Evil gets the kill, gets the tier to start, which is like, oh god, extra mana for this Cassiopeia, which, that's Cassio's biggest problem, is she's able to freaking, mana's her biggest issue. So you give that over. Then the invade happens, where she's able to just go straight to his red buff, find him there, and kill him because he has nothing else that he can do. And next thing you know, Spica is, super far behind. The Viego is able to get really far ahead in terms of everything. And this Cassio's just looking huge, right? But at the same time, both bot and top lane are winning. And people are going to put this game on Power of Evil. Fine, sure. He was going to carry. I'm no apologist for Power of Evil. I still think that, generally speaking, his lack of playmaking at times can be very detrimental to teams. I think that he sometimes lacks the ability to get ahead in lane. This game, he did not. And as Cassiopeia, there's a way where, yeah, he can play from ahead and everything, but it takes a lot of the team coming into him kind of thing. Whereas my biggest problem, and the reason why I think TSM win this game, is because the person who was given the true lead was Xerxes. And he did nothing. Like, go back and rewatch this game. Where was Xerxes the entire game? Like, after the initial speak up stuff, he doesn't really have much of an impact in this game. Like, as Viego, your whole thing is to be aggressive, be in lanes, do, a whole bunch of crazy stuff. He didn't do that. Like, I kind of forgot that he was even in this game, to be totally frank with you. When I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, they have a Viego. I think he was too scared to like take anything, and I don't think he played very well. And as TSM start to kind of come back, like you see, they get Huni, they get the double kill, they send all 4 of them up, everybody except for Tactical. They get 2 kills. Huni's ahead. He gets a full tower for himself. He's super far ahead in CS. He's embarrassing Revenge, even after Revenge, by the way, got a free red buff from the initial engage, or from the initial, Power of Evil play. And I'm just watching this game, and I'm like, dude, Power of Evil's doing everything he can to win this game. And even Arrow, I don't think, was too bad. It was just that he was so far behind in CS that he couldn't be useful, and he missed a ton of ults. Like, even the ones he hit were pretty useless. Dude, I don't know. I mean, this game was nuts. I mean, the fact that Huni's able to come back, he's able to get a kill in the top lane, he's able to get that tower. Then the next thing you know, they go down to, we're fighting over the dragon, which, we were able to get first dragon, which I think was absolutely huge. And off the fact, that Tactical was like 20 CS up already or some stupid crazy crap like that. I think he was actually up like 10 CS at 5 minutes. We give up second dragon. We're looking not too great. Then, like I said, we get that top play. First tower goes to us, thanks to Huni. And, they start stacking dragons, and they got both Rift Heralds. I mean, they controlled the objective game. But, like, what I loved about this team is we didn't care. We didn't force these plays. And I think the last 2 days, with the C9 game, with the Immortals game, I think this team didn't feel the pressure to, like, have to make these plays. I think they just trusted that they could figure it out, right? And, yeah, we didn't get, the one dragon, and that was pretty disappointing. But, like, it was just good play calls and good just calls overall, right? Like, so, in the one death that Huni has, because Immortals know they have to shut him down, the rest of the team, like, nothing's going on, right? We're really struggling to I think, push, the lead that we were actually finally getting after being down, like, 2K. I think we're down, what is this, 2,000, almost 2,300 gold at 7 minutes, which is generally a death sentence. But, they go down, they try to stop Huni, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh God, like, what's going to happen? Like, he's dead no matter what here. So what are they going to do? Well, TSM just goes, screw it. We have Jinx. We have Ryze. Let's go take Baron. They go in, they take Baron, and I'm like, oh my God, like, macro plays? Macro plays from this team? Good communication from this team? No, it couldn't be. And it was. And the and at the last fight around the second Drake for us, what was so impressive was Shinji gets caught out, but he's able to live forever. The rest of the team jumps in, and what I loved was oh my God, and then Spica made some unreal plays on this Jarvan. The first one over near their blue buff side, where he's able to turn away from the Cassiopeia, was just insanity. Then, or maybe that was near the third Drake. I can't remember. I just remember he made this incredible play and we're able to get the shutdown gold onto Power of Evil. Or, well, killing of Power of Evil. Then, in the last fight, as the rest of the team is trying to get there, he pops in, EQs, and then instantly ults onto the 2 carries. Right? And Cassiopeia and Ashe, they're some of the 2 most immobile carries in the game. I mean, seriously, like, neither of them have any escape tools at all. And you don't have the Tahm Kench to be able to save one of them. There is literally nothing they can do. And even if there was, right, like, look at their team comp. Destiny's Nautilus is the only thing that can maybe disengage, right? Like, this Viego that was given such a huge advantage just is able to do absolutely nothing, right? And when you have a Ryze that is going to build tanky, it's like, well, you can't focus him. Tactical's positioning in this game was nearly impeccable, right? And Huni, it's just like, doesn't matter. He's a bruiser, right? They changed, Irelia to be more of a bruiser character than, more of that super high DPS glass cannon. What was it? I think at the beginning of this year? Is it at the beginning of this year or late last year? And you just see him go to work. You just see him be able to pop in. Miasma, by the way, on that last fight, if you look where the Miasma was for Power of Evil, he actually uses it on Shinji. So it's down. It's down. And it's just like the baby cage from Fudge, where baby, his E was down when they were jumping in on him. It's a great play. They get the quadra kill, and the game's kind of over from there. And again, like, I just was so impressed, like the resilience of this team and just the way to play around your win con, right? Your win conditions. So what if Spica gets behind? If Huni gets ahead, he's playing Irelia. Super strong, right? He can take over a game. And by the way, for both games this weekend, they played around Huni's top lane. And they won both games. Coincidence? I think not. Guys, Huni's really good. He's really good, especially into these players that I think, Summit's obviously great, so I'm not going to talk trash on Summit. Summit had a bad game, but like that's like his first really, truly bad game of the year. Huni is a good player. And I think that he has truly evolved on TSM. And you know what? We're going to take a minute to talk about Huni. Okay? He came in with so many question marks. Coin flip this, coin flip that. And that was from me, right? Like, I'm sitting here, like, questioning, wow, like, do we really want this guy who's a true coin flip on our team? Do we really want a player who has struggled to find consistency? And what does Bjergsen teach him? He humbles him a little bit to a certain degree, right? He has him playing all these tanks, these weak side, help the team. And you can even see, like, if you watch his evolution from day one of last year to now, he doesn't take these ridiculous risks anymore. He still has the mechanical ability to take over games on Jace, like we saw last year, Irelia this year, even bring out his Rumble when needed for the team. And he and Spica just kind of like fit like a glove, man. They work well together. They didn't just keep Huni because he was the only true option available. I mean, that was partially true. They kept Huni because he's good. I would argue that Hooney's a top 5 top laner right now still in the LCS. I don't think that'd be too hard to argue. He's been the one consistent player for us all year. They finally started playing towards him, and guess what? He rewarded them, especially in the second game. And in the first game, he just gave them enough time to help get Spica ahead and, let the Zeri scale. I mean, listen, I understand that he is not the best, but I think at times he can be. And I really hope that this team moving forward recognizes that. And I hope that they keep him around, especially if he plays this well in the summer. I mean, guys, native top laners are not great. There's not a ton of options. And Hooney's aging like a fine wine. He's just getting better with age. Like, yes, I understand that, like, he won a championship with, or no, he finished second, right? Yeah, he was runner-up with SKT. And he was so good in those games. God, I remember him just popping off. But I think he's refined his play style to be able to play whatever and still be useful. Like, how many Hooney Int games have we had this year? Even when he was playing something completely brand new to him and support Smite. Top. Yeah, occasionally he has some bad plays, but he has really, really, like, found this, like, middle, even ground. And I'm just so pumped to see it happening because I think he's really, truly establishing that, like, this may not be the peak of his career, but, like, he has found his floor, and it's very high. There's like the floor and ceiling argument, right, with people, right? Like with Kaiduo, his floor was really low, but his ceiling was also extremely high. Like with Takeover, right, his floor is a little higher, but his ceiling's lower. For Hooney, his peak is way up here, but his floor was also way down here, where he had those games where he was just totally useless. Now it feels like his floor has come up here, and while his potential has come down here maybe a little bit more, the higher floor, right, the ability to be closer to being, I think, the true player that he is, has really come out. And when this team has needed him most, he has performed more times than not. He doesn't bring, like, the mental side of an older player, but I think at the same time that has really worked and spoken to people like Spica, like Tactical. I still think that maturity is something that this team lacks pretty heavily. And, that's okay to a certain degree. I think that's with Bjergsen, it worked. Like, I think if this team was coached by Bjergsen, by the way, I think we would be a little bit higher off. I think Chawi is still getting his chops in NA. I think he's, he obviously has a ton of experience as a coach, like, but I think, dealing with these guys, and I mean, you can tell, like, the maturity level is just not there compared to everybody else, from the past, and that's okay. Like, they still have fun with each other, they enjoy each other, but, like, Kaiduo and Shenyi are not going to be that stabilizing voice in game, right? And neither's Takeover. And Hooney may not be that, but he does provide the ability for this team to win games more often than not because he's on it. So that brings me to my last point here in my last few minutes, because I got to hop off here soon. Listen, I want to see what Takeover does next week. I want to be able to give him a chance. I still really do think they should have played Kaiduo. You brought him in, regardless of all the other BS that's happening on the outside of this. I still truly believe that Kaiduo should have been playing this weekend. I am glad for TakeOver. I think he played really, really well. I think his Rise ultimates were crucial to this team winning both of their games. He may not have had the stat line to back that up, but I'm telling you that he was a very important factor in their win. Both of them. That being said, I just talked about like a more mature, like stabilizing voice. If I am TSM and I am serious about making it to Worlds and performing at Worlds, I am calling Niski today. And I'm saying, what do you need to do to feel comfortable to come over and bring stability to this team? It's not only his play style that I think fits this team extremely well, right? He can play that supportive style. He can play that champion, right? That champion pool that can, he can bring out the TF. He can bring out the Rise. He can bring out, the Gallios. He can bring out whatever you need to win. And he still has the ability to carry as well. But the thing that I value the most for him is his ability to be a calming, stabilizing voice and to be someone who brings maturity to this team. Not that Niski's not fun, because he is. But this guy got screwed really badly. And it looks like Shenyi has kind of figured it out. I think he has been really solid, actually. Like, the last 2 weeks, I've been really impressed by his play. I should say particularly the last 4 games, right? Because he's been back now for 3 weeks, I believe. I want to say that, yeah, he has been. I'd have to look again. But, yeah, regardless, since he's come back, he's definitely looked more in line with the rest of the team. And I think they should keep him. I think you keep the rest of the team. I think and if TakeOver plays really, really well and this team is comfortable with him and they think by some miracle that they can make Worlds with somebody like... Because, I mean, the problem is people... Here's my issue with TakeOver is eventually people are going to realize that they can just attack that lane and get their mid laner ahead. And that's going to be a problem like we kind of saw it with this Power of Evil game, although TakeOver did stabilize the lane extremely well considering how far back he was put. But I think that's also because he was playing Rise. Super easy to clear with Rise. Man, it's just all he has to do for the rest of the game. I don't know if he can carry if you need him to. I don't know that you need him to. But I just think if this team wants to take that next step forward, I think you keep all of them. I think you keep maybe TakeOver even as like a sixth man if you really want to do that. But I think you call up Niski and you bring him in. I really do. I think that would be the game changer for this team. So, we'll see. We got one more weekend left. I think technically there's still a miracle scenario where we make it, but I'm not counting on that. I would say it's pretty unlikely. Last little point, by the way. With us beating Immortals, we are for the first time since, I think, week 2, not in last place. Look at us. Look at where we are now. We could even finish with 7 wins. I would love to go out and play a little spoiler on TL and 100 Thieves days and CLGs. Man, that'd be real satisfying. Especially for the TL CLG game. That'd be real fun. 100 Thieves looks pretty beatable too. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But with that, if you like this show, please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss another episode. We're on our way to 3,000 subscribers. Please, if you don't subscribe already, we'd really appreciate it if you do. Also, let's continue to make this the number 1 TSM LCS podcast out there. I appreciate all of your support with all of this. You can hit me up on Twitter at TGH Robert Haynes. You can hit the Game House up at TGH Esports as well. You can head over to the Game House. Riot's, little massive, not even little, month-long break basically is over next week. So hopefully we should see some interesting things. I think the new jungler, the new Void jungler, will be getting revealed shortly. There was already a small leak about when I think it's going to be a she, will be coming out. So make sure that you check that out. I will personally be writing those. And with that, thanks for tuning in. The show comes out every Monday and Thursday and is still exclusively for your TSM ear holes. I'm Robert Haynes. This has been Talking TSM. I'll see you all on Thursday.